say 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's give us something to talk about. Something to talk. Let's give them something to talk about. Yeah. Something to talk.
Hello there, you're welcome. This is the Secret Lives of Adults, and we are revealing all the secrets. Aren't we, Kojo?
I guess we are. My goodness, what a
dramatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we're about to host 60 minutes.
I know of something. Anyways, this is Kojo Yankson.
It is.
Yes, and I'm Animwaa and Addo. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel. A very big thank you to Oak Plaza Hotels in Accra and Kumasi, and to Comfort Productions, and also to Black ID for sorting out Kojo's clothes. So, what are we talking about today?
Why don't we try and find out what the hell is wrong with us? It sounds like a silly topic, but actually it's a deep and important one, right? I think we are all the products of our traumas and, our upbringing and all of that, right? And I think some things are common, which is why some behaviors are common. Yeah, so that's why you will find that majority of men are a certain way. Majority of women are a certain way, with exceptions, obviously, as with everything. So today I thought, let's try and talk about some of the common traumas, right? The common things that happen to women growing up, common things that happen to boys, men growing up, that is the reason for some of our behaviors that, you don't understand. Right.
Okay.
So ladies first.
Why though?
Because I'm a gentleman.
Nothing happened to me. I don't know. You go first.
Oh really? Nothing happens to women growing up.
No, I just can't. You just go first and then I can follow.
Get an idea.
Get a better idea, yeah.
Okay, very often when we talk about childhood trauma, and by the way, this word trauma, every time I hear it, I feel a little bit like cringing.
Trauma and trigger.
Yes. The reason is because we have been introduced to them by professionals.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is a word that is used by professionals, those who are professionally trained in psychology and psychiatry. They understand the term and are able to use it accurately. But it has seeped into common communication. And so now everybody says it. And I don't think we always use it right. So every time I hear it, and not just trauma, but other things like, I've done the work. You've done the work. That's another expression. When I hear, I cringe a little bit, because I think it's those of you who have the training that understand what it means
to do the work.
The rest of us, we're just saying it because we've heard it. Narcissist.
People say I've done the work just because they've heard it.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, a person who has done the work. Who has done the work? What the hell does that mean? A person who has done the work.
Yeah.
It's the same for the term narcissist.
Narcissist.
We throw them around. Trauma falls into that category. So maybe we should try and get an understanding of it first, okay, before we then go into examples of it. So you have some training.
Trauma?
Yes.
I would put trauma very simply as the things that happen to us that change us, that rewire our brain from what it should be to what it needs to survive, which then induces behaviors that are not necessarily normal but have become our way of adapting so that we can survive and deal with maybe things that are too big for us to understand, especially as children. There are events and experiences that happen to us that are too big for us to process, but they've happened to us and we don't know what to do with their emotions, and so our brains kind of and then create a person that can deal with this, either by shutting down, completely forgetting years of your life, completely forgetting details, adapting your behavior in a certain way. And then you grow up, and then you realize, something went wrong somewhere.
Yeah, very often after, you've kind of lived the negative effects of it for some time.
Yeah.
I like that explanation. Every time I hear the word trauma, it's preceded by the concept of a violent encounter, or like a clash of some sort. Something that is not supposed to happen. Something encounters something.
Not able to do. Yeah.
That's what sparks the idea of trauma in my mind.
So one of my favorite examples is, for example, if you threw a brick at me today, I'll probably be able to catch it. I won't be traumatized by it. But if you threw a brick at a baby, it would land on them and cause problems. And so it's also the kind of something happening to somebody at the wrong time when they wouldn't be able to handle it, and then having negative.
And perhaps the reason why you'd be able to catch it is because when you were younger it hit you and you didn't like it. So now you are more defensive against bricks being thrown at you. But also because we're older, so our instincts were stronger. We're more able to, you're actually more able to catch a brick now. Of course.
You don't have to be,
Okay. All right. So now that we kind of understand what trauma is, some examples of trauma that happens to a lot of men that explains a lot of our behavior as adults. And I'm going to go for the sexual first.
Yeah, I figured.
I'm going to go for that first, because this is an area in which men are criticized a lot for our attitudes towards sex, right? And I think that a lot of it can be traced to a very common trauma that men experience as boys growing up. If you ask any group of men, the majority of them will tell you that their first sexual encounter was with an older woman, either a house help, an auntie, someone who had responsibility for them. And I say sexual encounter, so it doesn't have to be full sex. It might have been their first kiss, first touching, whatever. In fact, look, we have a room full of 5 men here.
Are you going to put them
I'm going to ask if they will admit it.
Wow.
How many of you, your first encounter first sexual activity was with an older woman? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
3.
So 3 out of me too.
So
4 out of 5.
Wow.
And look, I can do this experiment in any room and be confident that I'll get this answer. So that's how widespread it is. Right? So look, our boys are being raped. And we don't know. And our brains immediately figure out a way to survive it by telling ourselves this is good. Because it's coming from someone who has authority over us, someone who knows what's good, what's right from wrong. This is the person looking after us. This is the house help, the babysitter, the auntie, the cousin, looking after us, telling us what we can do and what we can't do. And this person says, put your hand up my panties. So as far as I'm aware, she's telling me to do something that is good, that I'm supposed to do. So I start immediately to my brain has to survive this traumatic encounter. And again, the idea of a violent encounter, something that is not supposed to happen to me at the age of 11, right? But it's happening. So it's a violent revolution, upheaval of my youth, right? But my brain has to make me survive it. So it tells me that, look, this is good. This is a good thing that's happening. Right, so then I start, and I use the explanation, the scientific explanation of tickling. You know, when you are being tickled and you laugh, it's not pleasure that's making you laugh. It's a mixed signal from your nerves to your brain, right? That's making you give the wrong reaction to a feeling of discomfort. That's what happens. Okay, so you immediately build a callus around the idea of sex just to survive it. And a lot of the macho behavior, the discarding behavior, the concept of replaceability when it comes to sex, and the idea that the more sex you can have, the better, or the more of a man you are if you can, it's from that. Okay, and not many men can articulate this. Not many men can explain why they feel a sense of conquest from sex. Not many men can explain why they feel like they feel more like a man if they can have sex with more women. You can't place your finger on why you feel that way, but a lot of it is from this. You know, and if you think about how widespread it is in this our little room,
Oh, it's I know it's a big thing.
yeah, 80% of us here.
I think one of the dumbest questions that people ask pertaining to this is, if it was abuse, then how was there an erection? You know, if it was rape, when a man said he was raped, how was there an erection? But we know that men have reactions when they're cold, when they're afraid. It's really just blood rushing
Into
you know,
your
into
penis.
and
Yeah.
I've heard that said so many times. You know, if a 13-year-old boy is saying that he was raped, he had an erection, so he must have been enjoying it. But that's not necessarily even true, though.
Yeah.
You know, so I think we definitely need to be more sensitive to male abuse generally.
Besides, if a woman is wet, does that mean she consents?
No, not necessarily. She might be ovulating.
Precisely.
She might have an infection. Women have discharges, you know, all throughout the month,
Exactly.
depending on the time. So
Exactly.
consent is yes, no, stop, don't stop, keep going,
Yeah.
yes, daddy. So,
That's consent.
I mean, that's consent. If there's any ambiguity, then there's no consent.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, that was just
And I
what
mean,
it
let's also not forget that sometimes when you have power over someone, she might not want to, but she still won't feel able to say no.
No, yeah.
Okay, and that is still having sex without their consent,
Yeah.
or sexual abuse. Okay, because you are taking advantage
Yeah.
of a situation in which she would normally have liked to exercise her agency and say no.
And say, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you know she can't, because maybe she needs a job from you, or
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with that 13-year-old boy whose auntie is, you know, sucking on his penis. He doesn't feel that he has the agency to say no,
Yeah.
because it's being done to him by somebody who's supposed to protect him. And as far as he's aware, she knows right from wrong.
Wrong, yeah.
So even though this thing instinctively feels wrong, I have to tell myself that it's right.
That's right, yeah.
I have to overcompensate for how wrong it feels by making myself believe that this is the life.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big
That's
ones.
one of the big ones. I mean, there's something I'm very passionate about, and I think that happened when I became a parent. You know, raising the kids is how much parenting damages people. I think a lot of the trauma that we carry is from the way we were parented. The way that we're able to love and be stable in relationships is very dependent on the way that we were parented. And I'm gonna say one for the guys. A lot of men cheat. A lot of men avoid emotional intimacy. A lot of men are afraid of being vulnerable and open, because as little boys, or when they were growing up, they didn't have that emotional intimacy with their parents. I think that maybe affects boys more. Emotional intimacy with their parents, emotional stability. So they're afraid. So you meet men who are in relationships with good women, and when their relationships are getting serious, they cheat. Or they run away. They're called avoidance. But they run away because emotional intimacy is not a safe space for them, because they didn't experience it as children, or they were abandoned, or they were rejected. Or you know how our little boys of today love to run up to their moms. Little boys of today are very affectionate. You know, they're hugging you, they're touching. And for us, I guess this generation of parents, we're much more affectionate with our children. So when your little boy comes to hug you, you don't say things like, you know, be a man, why are you always wanting to hug? You know, but generations before us, that was what it was like. So we're reaping the effects of men who are afraid to show love, are afraid to need a woman, you know, to rely on a woman, and so they're cheating, they're avoiding, and they're running away. I think that's one of the major things that we're dealing with today, because then our relationships are struggling because of the way that we were parented. I know that women are really, really affected by their relationship with their mothers, and so you see that women who had good relationships with their mothers growing up, there was affection, there wasn't a lot of judgment. Mothers, we tend to project our failures onto our daughters. You know, we project our shortcomings onto them. So, and I caught myself doing that a few years ago. My daughter she's very slim and she's tall, and she went through this period where she liked, you know, eating some particular things, and I started to nag, you know, like, the things you're eating, you're going to put on weight, and I realized that she was becoming conscious of the way that she looked, but she wasn't actually putting on weight. That was me projecting, you don't want to have to deal with this weight loss journey, so don't. But what I would have ended up doing if I didn't actually start affirming her and having an honest conversation with her about, it's easier to not have weight issues than to have weight issues and try to deal with them, was that then I would have given her self-esteem issues, because then she'll always be like, if I'm eating this, am I going to be this, am I going to be this? And you when you interact with women, you see how critical mothers have been of their daughters, especially in their looks, in the things that they do. So you find that fathers are doing a really good job of trying to affirm their daughters, and mothers are constantly almost picking at them. Why do you look like this? Why are you wearing this? Why is your hair like this? Why are you this? You are too this, you're too that, you're too that, without realizing that you're raising a child, who's going to go into a woman who is going to have society tell her she's not beautiful enough anyway. So why must she hear that she's not beautiful enough from you, her first point of love? Why can't you do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's something I've seen with a lot of my friends and with myself, the difference between the way our mothers handled us and loved us and raised us, the kind of women that we become. On the other side of that, also, the kind of wife you get largely depends on how her father, loved her. Because no matter what it is, your father is your first love. There's nothing that you can do about that. So when you have an affectionate father who is validating you, affirming you, and is interested in you, it sets the standard for the kind of behavior that you expect from a man. And which is why I'm so passionate about, the father-daughter relationship. I think that children will kind of always go towards their mums, no matter what it is. Mommy is mommy, but that intentionality, with the father because of what he is.
It's funny because you're saying that. I've thought of my two sisters, right? My older sister is 11 years older than me. So, I mean, when my parents had her, my dad was 19, my mom was 16. When they had her. So they continued schooling, which meant that she grew up a lot of the time with my grandmother. Okay, so it took some time. She was probably about 9-10 years old before she came to live with my parents for the first time, and that was when they started to bond. And you can imagine the lost years were never gained back. So my older sister is wildly independent. Like, she is the definition of independent. Jenny, I mean, she can run 3 countries if you ask her to. She's just self-reliant. She doesn't need anybody. She will get it done. That's Jenny. Hates to ask for help. Will do it herself. Find a way and do it herself. My younger sister, Araba. Now, it's like my parents had made all their mistakes with us, so they got it right with her. And Araba is the most well-adjusted, balanced, completely emotionally in touch. She doesn't overreact to things. She's just so well-balanced in all the things she does. And you can see that is an effect of parenting, right? I mean, look, another thing, and again, I guess this is more for the boys, or more it's for me. I don't know if it applies to others as much. Growing up, whenever we had dinner, and we always had dinner together, my mother, father, all the kids together at the dining table. Afterwards, my father would say to us, "Did you like your food?" And we'd say yes. Say thank you to your mother. And we'd all say, "Thank you, mommy. Thank you, mommy." It became the thing. Sometimes my father would just come and say, "Can't you see your mother is tired? Go and help her." And I mean, now that I think back about it, I'm wondering, we were both, you and I were both in the living room. We were both watching football. My mother was pounding fufu outside. How did you know that
she's tired?
Right? Or today, your mother is going to come home late. She can't do all of this housework. You guys do it. All right, when she comes, let her be happy that you've done the housework. And we would do it. So my dad was always making us do things for my mom. Right? And always making us show love to my mom. Okay,
so I understand why you are the way you are.
Yeah, and my mom never ever said to us, "Go and thank daddy for paying the rent this month," or "Go and thank daddy for..." Okay. No, it never happened. And I'm just telling you the facts. That never happened. So I grew up with this ingrained sense that it's women who deserve love.
Grateful to mommy.
Yeah, it's
expected of daddy.
Yeah, it's women who deserve love. Like, if you have love, show it to a woman. and I had to kind of unlearn that in raising my son. I had to be intentional and deliberate about showing him affection, because there's no daughter, you understand? So I had to really pour in all of my ability as a parent, all my love, all my attention, all my discipline, everything that I have as a parent into this one boy. And I couldn't treat, you understand? I couldn't. So I'm hoping that I've fixed something that I think my parents got wrong with me, because it made me lopsided. It made me think that love should only flow in one direction. And so I sometimes feel weird. I used to, I'm better now. I used to feel a little bit weird when a woman expressed love to me. I wondered what she was after.
I see what you
Yeah,
mean.
it took some time for me to settle into understanding and accepting love, from a woman. And now I realize how fortunate I am ever to have, but again, it's parenting, isn't it?
It's parenting. Yeah. Another thing that's interesting is I have, and I'm sure I don't know if you know this, I have a certain, it's not a lack of regard, a certain not afraid of authority.
Yeah, we've noticed.
You and who haven't known that?
Yes, it has occurred to us.
Whatever. Anyways, and it's because of my dad, because he raised me always saying, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Like, ask people why. If an adult tells you to do something, ask them why. If they don't want to tell you, they probably don't have a good reason. If they have a good reason, they'll explain it. And he pushed it in me so much that it has become difficult in my life to just take instructions. I mean, it's not a good thing sometimes. It's a good thing sometimes. I cannot take simple instructions without an explanation. Unless, of course, when you give the instruction, it already makes sense to me. But that's something that he did. And this has been how many years? But then you find out that the effects are lasting. I find it difficult to be in awe of people, regardless of their achievements or who they are. Everybody seems really ordinary to me, or just, okay. Again, because of my dad, it's like we're all the same. People make mistakes, you fix it, you fall down, you get up. You like, there's no somebody is better than you, somebody's this, somebody's that, somebody is that. I wish I had that sometimes. I wish I could look at someone and just be in awe, like, wow. I don't.
Yeah.
And it
is what it is.
It is, yeah, it is what it is.
Do you also think that maybe we put a little too much emphasis on how our parents traumatize us, and we forget how our friends traumatize us growing up?
I mean, bullying, how we've traumatized other people, the kind of things that we used to say in the playground, those things definitely, were definitely traumatic. I think, let me just use this as a medium to talk about fat people, right? The amount of insensitivity that there is in our society towards people who are not slim is maddening. Like, it's maddening. The names, the what's the word? Inferences, and sometimes it's so, like, you're like, wow. But that's how our society is, and it still happens. So fat people who are big are still bullied, are still being body shamed, are still being, why? And I don't get it, because what do you get from making me feel bad about myself?
Do you know that there are some people who think that, fat people are just so jolly and they're okay and tolerant, and they don't seem to lose their temper. They seem quite fine with it.
I think it's a trauma response that
it
fat
is.
people are jolly.
That's
and
actually what I was going to say. Yeah. It is. It's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
It's not that they love it. Because have you noticed another group that sometimes gets, shtick, but not as much? Short people.
Oh yeah, short people.
But because they are known to have a temper.
So it's like short people. But they have a temper because you're always like, I have to shout, so you take me seriously, because you're always, Kojo, there's one thing though, I walk away from people very easily. And in this season of my life, I'm learning to stay. I walk away from people very easily because I've lost a lot of people. My parents split up, so I was with my dad. There was always the back and forth, of course their divorce was not a pleasant one. So there's always the back and forth. So I learned not to need anybody too much. So it's easier. And my best friend, she would say it with me, she would say it over and over. When I fight with her, my first response is, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. Like, I'm walking, it's done. This relationship is done. Like, that's it. And then she'll say, this is easy for you to walk away because you've lost people. So easy for you. If when a relationship gets difficult, it's easier for me to say, I'm done, I'm walking away, don't want to, than for me to, I don't know what it feels like to stay and fight through something. And I mean, for me, I mean, that's so people have been critical of me a lot. In terms of, a relationship, it is very easy for me to walk away from a marriage, from whatever it is. Like, walking away is not, I'm gone. Like, I'm out. I'm not doing this. I'm learning now that it is my way of protecting myself. I will leave before you leave. I will hurt myself rather than have you hurt me. It is easier for me to say I left you than to live with the fact that maybe I did something and you left me.
I suspect that that's going to be a very common thing people can relate to.
Yeah.
And another thing, and I've realized this over time, I only have one friend in this world.
Oh,
shut up. Why? But I only have one friend. That's my best friend, Elam. He lives in Manchester. He's my only friend. Like, literally, if there's something I need to discuss with someone, he's the only person I even consider talking to. And this is a very low maintenance friendship. He's not even in Ghana. I don't have to meet with him once a week. We don't go and play football
low
together.
Maintenance.
I mean, literally, most of our communication is over WhatsApp status. I post something funny, he comments. He posts something funny, I comment. We share updates. Charlie, how are the kids? This is how our friendship is on a regular basis. Until something critical happens, then we rally and solve the problem together, right? That's my only friend in this world. Everybody else is people I know. And like you, okay, the thing that made me even think of it is the fact that I have also learned to hold people at arm's length. And sometimes I try to trace it back. I mean, what trauma made me like this? What is it that happened that made me? When I was young, I didn't really lose anyone close to me, or nobody died or anything like that. But I think I grew up in a household where there were such big gaps between my older sister and me, and between me and my younger sister.
So you kind of had to just,
So it was, at any given time, it's just you.
Yeah.
It's almost like I have two siblings, but I grew up as an only child. And each of us did.
My older sister is 20 years older than me, so I can completely relate.
So each of us did. We grew up as only children, so we learned to be self-reliant. And anyone who comes into our lives, it's just you're there. It's nice that you're there, but I'm not going to rely on the fact that you're there. And so the best relationship I have ever had is with this friend of mine who doesn't require
much
maintenance
at all.
He doesn't need me to be like checking in on him every day. We check in whenever we want. When he comes to Ghana, he lives in my house. But while he's in my house, I'll see him like twice.
Well, there you go.
So this is what I'm saying, that look, the way we grow up is really the entirety of the building blocks of who we are. And sometimes if you can have that conversation with a person coming into your life and let them understand your building blocks, your chances of having a meaningful and longer relationship with them are heightened.
I do that though, Kojo. When I meet somebody I really like, the first conversations are really not, what do you like? I want to know what you've been through. I want to know how you were raised. I want to know if you know the things that have traumatized you. Because my loving you is taking all of that, and it's going to affect how you treat me. So if I know from the get-go they're an avoidant, then I know that I have to learn how to love an avoidant. Otherwise, I'm going to push you away, you're going to hurt me, and all of that. So those are the conversations that matter. And also, go to therapy. Like if you are having these conversations with yourself, and just go to therapy. It's save up. I think the average cost of therapy in Ghana is about 200 or 250 cedis an hour. A session, which is about an hour. So one session a week. And I mean, if you want to, you can save up, do 5 or 6 or 7.
There's a lot of stigma around it.
Sessions. Get therapy.
We're not yet at the point where people understand that it's a tool, a useful tool.
Because it's really just talking. It doesn't mean you're mad or you're something. It's just...
It takes some time for us to get to that point.
Oh, we need
I
to
wish
get
we
there
would.
soon, yeah.
I wish we would, because it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It doesn't. It's not a sign of weakness. It means you're trying to be better.
Yeah.
Okay.
All righties. Well, see you next week.